little bit, yeah, a little bit.
We're gonna do a lot of education and a little bit of movement. Does that sound good, everybody?
That's
Alright.
okay, but no, I'll take notes, because we didn't set up for notes.
Nope,
Okay,
no,
that's
no
good.
notes are needed.
Well, formally, thank Michelle, Secretary Palladini, for coming today and doing her program on senior self-defense, which I wasn't sure. I think a couple of years ago you did this here before I got here, and I thought it was about, karate and stuff, but it's more education and less about the physical, but a little bit about the physical, as Michelle just said. So, without further, I think most of you know Michelle anyway. She's that pretty, fresh face, friendly face around town.
Thanks.
So, take it away, Michelle.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, just
Welcome.
Christine's.
Do we need to
I
adjust?
thought you were gonna trip over.
Oh, okay.
Heather, do you want to come over? You don't want to go, you don't need to.
All right, so thank you for all coming out in the middle of winter on this drizzly day. So you made a commitment to your safety, so that's a great start, so I love it. This is one of my favorite classes to teach because I think so often we're living in a society that everybody's busy, not everybody's always maybe paying attention, and people are starting to hear things on the news, whether it's about homes being broken into or people being assaulted or followed and things like that. And so the questions that come to me quite often are, how do I keep myself safe when I don't really know necessarily what to do? Should I take a karate class, right? So the biggest thing about self-defense is the situational awareness. So it's knowing what situations not to put ourselves in, and a little bit of safety for when we're walking, if anybody walks in here, or if you're just walking to your vehicle, or if you're home alone at night, and how safe and secure is your home. So there's a lot that we're gonna talk about in the next hour or so that we're together. And then when all else fails, I do have some pretty practical hands-on techniques that we can use. And so you'll have an opportunity to try them if you would like to try them. I did bring some of my martial arts pads, so if you need to practice and get any stress or anger out, you can do that too. So we're gonna practice a little bit of that as well. So I like doing this kind of activity, not just getting to know one another, but also wondering what brought you here. So everybody kind of has a different piece of what brought them here or why. And I think it's important that I know that as the instructor so that I can build the class that there's a little bit of something for everyone. So with that said, I want to make sure that if you have specific questions throughout the course of the hour, make sure you ask them. So if I start talking about a topic and you're like, geez, that reminded me of something that happened, please ask the question. Let's keep it conversational. Does that sound good to everybody? Perfect. So I think the first thing, and a lot of you mentioned this, it's just having that feeling of security and safety. And somebody mentioned, well, I do feel safe in Norfolk, but we don't want to bury our heads in the sand either. So Norfolk is a very safe town, and we are quite proud of that. Right, Sarge? So we love the town that we work in. By and large, this is a very safe community. However, we have people coming through our community all the time that we don't know who they are or what their background is. And there's people who live in the community too that sometimes make poor choices. So we can't sort of have the blinders on that things will never happen. So we sort of prepare for the worst but hope for the best. And the fact that you are here today, that's your preparation. So your preparation is learning the things that I'm going to talk about today, and sort of maybe you become a little bit more aware of your surroundings. And so this group is a little bit different than when I teach teenagers. Because when I teach teenagers about being aware of their surroundings, what do you think I have to worry about with teenagers?
Their phones.
Their phones, right. So we see them all the time walking around with a cell phone in front of their face. And perhaps maybe you've even caught yourself doing that occasionally. I have fallen victim to that myself. So you think about the ways in which we're not always paying attention to our surroundings and really bringing our awareness to that. And a lot of it comes down to sort of having that intuition, that gut feeling. Has that ever happened to anybody? And you mentioned parking garages, right? All right, so let's start there. Do parking garages freak anybody out?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, they freak me out. And people will say to me all the time, well, Michelle, you're a police officer, like you must never get scared. I'm like, that's funny. So fear is a good thing, right? Fear actually keeps us safe because our body is naturally able to alert us to danger. That's when we get that gut feeling in the pit of our stomach, or we see somebody that we're like, there's just something not right about this person. Or maybe we see somebody in our neighborhood walking and we're like, that person doesn't quite fit in here. I don't know what it is about that person. I've never seen them before. You know, they're not in a vehicle, you know, that shows that they're servicing somebody's, you know, oil or something like that. There's just something that sticks out about them. And so that's the time that we start to listen to our gut. Because I can't tell you how many times we have received calls at the police station from after, let's say we've had a house broken into. People will call and say, oh, you know what? I did see, you know, there was a black truck in my neighborhood. And we're like, oh man, like we wish you had called, because that's knowledge that would have been, you know, really good for us in the moment, because we would have been able to respond. So with that sort of statement, don't ever hesitate to contact us if anything looks out of place. Does anyone have a question on that as far as suspicious, you know,
I think people might feel like, oh, well, the police is busy, I'll let it slide.
Yeah, so we hear that a lot. And so here's the thing. Your tax dollars pay for us, right, to be of service to you 24/7. And so, yes, if we're busy, we also have mutual aid with all of our surrounding communities. So if for some reason we are tied up on, you know, in the north end of town and something happens off of Pine Street, we'll be calling Foxborough and Rentham to assist us. So there's always a mechanism in place, and people will often say, well, I just feel like I'm bothering you guys with nothing. We would much rather be bothered than miss some type of critical information.
When you follow up on a call like that and say the guy in the black car was a legitimate citizen, do they get upset with you?
It depends. Yeah. It's a good question. Typically, and most reasonable people who are there doing business, like, really understands that, you know what, somebody called because there was a concern. And typically, and especially we get a lot of solicitors in town, as every community does, and they're supposed to have a tag. They're supposed to check in with us and let us know where they're going to be. And so it's a good way for us to sort of vet who's in our town as well, because there is a policy that they're supposed to follow. And if they're not following it, that's an opportunity for us to educate them on what our expectations are in this town as far as solicitors go. Oftentimes we'll have somebody that just, you know, well-intentioned, they're visiting somebody, their car had been parked, you know, in a cul-de-sac for a couple of days and neighbors never saw anyone come and go, and most people are understanding. So it's never a problem to call. Has anyone had solicitors come up to their door?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a question?
Well, one of the things tied to that, when we do in our dead-end street, if there's a car or a person we don't know, if somebody's in the car, we ask them who they are and what they're doing. We take a picture of their license plate, and we know what they're supposed to be doing. We check in with each other all the time, and it seems to work.
That's great. I love that. That's really
And everybody in that street does it.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
You know, sometimes if somebody just actually drove too long and wanted to take a nap before they went home. We still, okay, picture, and we do it, and they say, and we just say something simple like, hey, our neighbors, we look out for each other, and they seem to understand, or they drive off.
Yeah, and then you call us, right? You're like, wait a minute, something funny is going on there. I love that. I think, particularly the younger generation, I think we've gotten away from knowing our neighbors a little bit. I don't know if all of you feel that way, but I think we've gotten away from sort of that. Everybody's looking out for each other. People are home during the day. And quite honestly, you know, so many people today are working. You know, both parents and households are typically working today. And so people aren't around as much. And that's often when we see most of our break-ins will happen, is during the day. And common misconception is that the criminal who's breaking into a home wants people to be home. They don't want people to be home. They're looking for very quick access to the home. Most of the time we find it's through an open door, so people aren't locking their doors. So biggest takeaway, lock your doors. I feel like most of you probably do. I'm finding that the younger generations are less door lockers than the older generation, but we see that a lot. So open doors, houses with alarms don't always get hit because, you know, there's an alarm system. Some people talk about getting those like stickers for your window that say your house is alarmed, but it's not whatever works for you. Some people have put out camera systems. Now, especially with technology being so prevalent, camera systems are really inexpensive now. I don't advocate any particular brand, nor do I say run out and buy cameras. But if that's something that gives you a feeling of security, then by all means, go for it.
Or not.
Or not.
The first night we put ours in, we had 3 people in the backyard.
Really?
Yes,
You're kidding?
Yeah.
Wow. And did you call us when it happened?
we did not because we got the message a little later.
Okay.
And they were kids,
Oh, okay.
and it was around Halloween.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the other thing you have to deal with. A lot of people use the Ring doorbells now.
I think they were trying to get from the High Lines to the street.
Okay.
From the High Lines.
Probably.
We've called numerous times when we see cars
Yeah.
staying out on the High Lines,
Mm-hmm.
no activity.
Yeah, and it's always good to call.
And stolen vehicles end up back there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we're coming to recover them. So yeah, so with the cameras, I mean, it's definitely a personal choice. You're definitely going to get activity. So if a lot of the camera systems now will come directly, if you have a smartphone, it'll come directly to your phone. So you'll get notifications. If you get a lot of deliveries, you might get notifications all the time that people are there. But a lot of people like them just for the added security that God forbid something happened, there would be somebody on camera.
And also the camera is somewhat visible for anybody coming up to your door.
Yes, and we're finding that it does serve as a deterrent, as do dogs. Dogs are a big deterrent. We typically, see that. Again, not saying you have to run out and get a dog, but if you want to, go for it, right? Hey. But barking dogs, huge deterrent. I always advocate, especially with seniors, I know that people like to have the hide-a-key. Get rid of the hide-a-key because criminals know that people hide keys. And a lot of people, and my mother-in-law, like God bless her, like she got one of those like fake rocks that like doesn't really look like a rock, and she just sort of like put it next to a bush, and I was like, no, that's going away. We're not going to use that. That obviously looks like there's something hidden in there. So you think about opportunities for access, and we just want to remove those opportunities. So if you want to give a key to a trusted neighbor or a friend to hold the key for you, then great. Sure, does it create a little bit of inconvenience if you forget your key and you need to get into your house? Sure, but if you have a neighbor that you trust, I would recommend giving them the key, having them keep it somewhere inside the home. That's just my 2 cents. We want to remove as much opportunity as we can. So with that said, if you have so let's say it's a solicitor or it's somebody you don't know show up at your door, do people answer the door or not answer the door?
Not answer.
You don't answer. Okay. Does anyone answer the door?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
With a big dog by my side.
Nice. I like you. So there's 2 schools of thought with this. Okay. One, we don't answer the door and the criminal goes away. Okay. The other thing that could happen is the criminal thinks that nobody's home. So then what do? Then they try and force their way into the door. So my recommendation is to make your presence known, but don't open the door. Because once you open the door, now you have a window or a door of opportunity. So unfortunately, now you're susceptible to them stepping foot in your house. And I don't know about any of you, but I remember being a kid and a solicitor had come over and he actually put his foot in the door when I was probably 13, 14 years old. And that always stayed with me because again, my gut was telling me, and my parents weren't home. And I remember my gut telling me, this is a bad situation. Now I've just given this individual complete access to me, to my home. So my recommendation is keep the door closed, keep it locked. I can't come to the door. I just had surgery, my significant other's in the shower. So I like saying things like that because then it shows that you're not alone either. Or sorry, we're having family dinner, whatever you need to say, but making noise too, even if you don't want to say anything, turning on a vacuum or turning on lights, things like that, just so that the person knows that you're home. Because again, they don't want to encounter you. So they're looking for homes that are unoccupied. And what are our criminals mostly looking for today? When they break in? Yeah, jewelry.
Things that can have a quick turnover for cash.
Yep. Quick money, exactly. So cash, jewelry, which most people keep in the dresser or on the dresser in a jewelry box, or the cash is in a drawer, and you're all laughing because I know you're all guilty of it. And listen, I am too. I do have some jewelry that isn't like under lock and key, but a lot of it isn't expensive or meaningful or whatever. So if you have jewelry that is, family heirlooms or is worth, a substantial amount of money, I always advocate putting it in a safe. I know it's inconvenient. You want to go out on Friday night and wear your best, beautiful necklace, but I advocate lock it up. If it's really special to you, we don't want to have it out in the open. The other thing that we really like for you to do is photograph your jewelry. So if you have things, especially if they're not as unique, like sometimes people will have their things stolen and they'll say, well, it was a diamond necklace. Okay. So now when I go search through the pawn databases and I'm trying to search for a diamond necklace, how many do you think pull up? So many. But if there is anything in particular about it, or I have an actual picture, because what happens is when criminals break into somebody's home and they steal jewelry, they typically go right to the pawn shop or to like those cash for gold places. You see those around, and they'll trade in jewelry. They'll get the cash for it. But in order to do that, they have to show a license, and then the person taking the jewelry has to take a picture of it. So it's been pretty successful for us that we can recover some things, but time is of the essence, because typically, especially the cash for gold places, they melt down the jewelry usually like once a week. So time is really critical. So for us to be able to have, God forbid it happen to you, if we have a list of all the jewelry that you own with pictures that correspond with it and descriptions, it's helpful for us because we can search a lot faster. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, excellent. Other things are medications.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, and so I mentioned this to this group in particular because, right, as we get older, more medications in the house, right, more surgeries, ailments, and who do you think knows that people who are seniors probably have more medication than a healthy, fit 38-year-old like myself? I'm just kidding. I actually am, have physical ailments already. So I'm pushing 40, everybody, it's happening. But they know. And so they know that there are good houses to target where seniors may live, because seniors typically keep medication around. And you may have medication from a surgery a year ago that you're like, I'm just going to keep it just in case. Maybe I'll need pain relief in the future. I would say either lock it up, and especially if you have, grandkids or teenagers that come over, you don't ever want to put yourself in that position of having that medication accessible, especially to young people. So lock it up, or if you need to dispose of it, does everybody know we have the disposal at the police station? Okay, perfect.
Does it have to be in the original container?
No, it can be just slung into
So
a
it doesn't even
bag.
have to be identified what kind of medication it is?
Nope.
I just poured mine all in a plastic bag and took them down
Good to
there.
know.
Yeah, it's
We
great.
flushed them in the toilet.
Where do you take it to?
Maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah, it doesn't-
Yeah, because it goes,
Yeah,
so
it
there's,
contaminates the-
right, so there's studies
The
to
water
show it
use.
can get into the water supply in larger quantities, so, and I don't know all of the science behind that, but the best way to do it
Antibiotic resistance.
is, yes,
It can.
I think that's what I've heard, yeah.
Yeah,
So just dispose of it with us, and if you,
Whereabouts do we take it to use?
so it's right in the police station lobby.
Oh.
So right at our new, has everyone seen our new station yet?
You don't even have to talk to anybody.
You don't even have to talk to anybody, it's true. You can walk
No,
right in,
it's-
open it up, put your medication in, and close it.
They don't take liquids, however.
No liquids, correct. No syringes. We do have a place that we can dispose of syringes if you need, if you're diabetic or something like that.
Is one of those boxes in the fire station also?
Well,
And in the police station?
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
So you guys are covered that way. Especially syringes. The fire department has a bigger box than we do.
There's not a drug box at the fire station anymore, though.
At the fire station?
No drug box.
No, we have it at the
First,
police
yeah.
station. Yeah,
Oh, so
once.
it's not in the fire station?
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about syringes. Yeah. So yep. So it's with us at 14 Sharon at our new station. So
'Cause I went to the fire station first.
did you? So if you have medications to dispose of, it's also a great opportunity to come down and see our new police station, which we are very proud of. So it's an opportunity. So any other questions about home safety? about keeping yourself safe at home, please.
If you have this alert phone call and the police or the EMTs come and the doors are locked,
Mm-hmm. So we find a way in. Don't you worry.
Breaking the door down, though.
Typically, we have better ways of getting in than having to take your door down. I would say 99% of the time, we're able to get through without any damage. Sometimes there may be damage to the lock or the door jamb, but most of the time. So another tip for all of you too, because we do have some residents that we frequently do go to the house for either lift assist, so helping somebody get up after falls, or just, getting into bed, they're having trouble with mobility, or we have, somebody that has a lot of health issues. Sometimes folks will give us the code to their garage, if you have a garage, or things like that. So that's always an option too. We do have some folks that do that. And it's for those of you who were there, let's say a weekly basis. I'm not saying that's something you have to give us as preventative, but for people that, really need the support of the fire department and our paramedics on a more regular basis, then that's an option as well. So, other questions about that? Mm-hmm.
If somebody breaks into your house, is it better to have some valuables available for them to take or not? Because sometimes I've heard that if there's nothing in the house, they'll trash the house instead.
No, we don't really see that, just because they're looking to get in and out so quick, because they know, unless you live, and I know some homes in Norfolk are, in the woods, very tree filled. So if, you have a house that's a little bit more remote and, they have a little bit more time, but most of our homes, there's always people around, cars driving by, so they want to get in and out as quick as possible. Plus they're running the risk of being caught. So typically what we see is they're going right up typically to the master bedroom, looking through drawers, looking for jewelry. Sometimes they'll open kitchen drawers and things like that. Even offices too, if you have an office or a place you keep your computers and things like that. That used to be pretty popular, but we're seeing less and less of it because most of the electronic devices now can be tracked, particularly if they're Apple devices or if you leave, I know a lot of people, will go out for a walk and leave their phone at home, and we'll talk about that in a minute if you have a cell phone. But they can be detected very easily. They're all, have GPS built inside of them, so criminals aren't as inclined now to take, if you have a Macintosh computer or an iPhone or any other type of smartphone, those are all trackable. So criminals aren't as inclined to take those types of things anymore. So as far as your question about leaving valuables out, I would say I've never seen that really be a deterrent. So I would say let's just not have any opportunity for them to take anything. So anything valuable, I would just...
And what's the number one thing they're after?
Gold.
Oh, good, they're not going to bother me.
That's what I say. I don't really have a lot of expensive jewelry, if any at all. Yeah, exactly, right? So, so gold, very popular.
Cash.
Cash, yeah. And I do know a lot of people still do keep cash in the house. I always advise against it. Get it in the bank, get it out of your house when possible. Okay. Other questions on home safety? Please.
I had heard one time that if someone's at the door, you mentioned somebody rings the doorbell and you are home, but you want to make them aware. You don't know who it is. It might be the UPS guy. It might be somebody from the town that needs to be assessment, whatever.
Sure.
You go up to your second floor window and say, "Can I help you? What are you here for?" And they know you're home. And if they have a good reason, if it's somebody, then they know you're there and you know who they are, hopefully, if they don't lie to you.
Yeah, exactly.
They might have a clipboard, but you don't know that. Even if you don't have a second floor, go around the corner and holler out the bedroom windows.
I like that. I think that's great.
You're in, you're locked,
Yes.
you're not in the face.
Right. And you can have your phone with you too.
Exactly.
If you have a cell phone or a cordless phone or you're near a phone, you can have that phone ready in case, they make a decision to try and enter your home.
Exactly.
But, I mean, that, knock on wood, is so rare. Nobody's looking to break into someone's home to harm them. And I say nobody loosely, right? We know that these fluke things can happen. But by and large, they're looking to steal from you. And that's it.
What about chain locks? I have a chain lock on my front door. It's not for safety.
Okay.
It's because for years we didn't lock the front door. We don't know where the key is. So we finally decided maybe we should lock it, and we got the chain lock. So how safe do you think they are if you open your door to talk to the person?
I am not inclined to say that is safe. Only because chains can be snapped. I mean, we know, like, if we ever have to kick a door in, which again doesn't happen often in Norfolk, but just from my colleagues in other communities, it's pretty easy to kick in a chain lock. It's not even so much the physical chain; it's the way the chain is attached. So the bracket it's attached to.
I'm sure
it's very easy to, with enough force,
very strong. So.
Yeah,
but nobody comes to my front door, so I don't usually have a question.
Yeah. Another thing that I always like to mention too, I don't know how many folks have garages, but a lot of times people use their garage for storage and the car parks outside.
Right.
So remember to keep your car locked, because if you have a garage door opener in your car and your car's unlocked, they can get into your house through your garage door opener. So
I didn't think about that.
Most people don't. And even when I heard that, I was like, wow, I never thought of that.
We haven't locked our cars in years until recently, when I saw on Facebook so many people indicating that things were taken from their cars. So now we do, but we haven't done it in many years.
And we experience those like all of the other communities. We find it kind of comes in waves. The spring, we usually see an uptick in vehicle break-ins, and they're looking for the same type of thing. I can't tell you, I think last year we had multiple folks that had left wallets in unlocked cars. So I'm like, bring your wallet in the house. So again, we're all human. Everybody makes mistakes, but good rule of thumb is let's keep the wallets in the house. Because again, that also gives somebody an opportunity. And we know this. I remember my dad telling me this when I first got my license. Don't leave money in the car in plain sight, because then it gives them an opportunity to break the window so that they can grab the cash. So valuables out of sight is always good. And that goes for your home too. Making sure nothing is visible, from an exterior window. Other kind of safety tips with windows is also making sure you don't have things, trash barrels under your window that makes it easy for somebody to climb up on and pop your windows open. Again, this is not always feasible. Like, you have to put your trash barrel somewhere, okay? And I'm not trying to make your homes fortresses. I'm just giving you things to think about, okay?
Don't leave a ladder next to your window.
Don't leave a ladder next to your window. Exactly. All these things that, and all of this conversation is not to say, that, or to make anyone feel bad that you're doing the wrong thing, or like, oh gosh, I'm so stupid, I never thought of that. There's things that I still learn every day, and I do this for a living. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of that. Or mistakes that I've made running out of the house without, we have an alarm on our house, but going out and forgetting to set the alarm, or things like that. So we all make mistakes. So this is just educational.
You mentioned cars. We bought a new car about 3 years ago that has a GPS system in it. And the salesman said to us, and I'm so glad he did, he said, don't put your home as your favorite. Put a nearby street. Because if your car gets broken into and your garage door opens there, drive in, clean the place out.
You got it.
I've got Lois Lane as my home address, not my own street.
Good.
I have a used car, and it's with the previous owner's home address, and we're getting off.
Wow.
Yeah.
She didn't take it out.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's great. It's a really good tip. It's these things, right, that we don't think about. And I think that also comes back to sort of some of this, like, simplifying a little bit, the things that we do on a daily basis and the things that we don't always think about. And again, going with that intuition, kind of thinking outside the box, because I think oftentimes, especially living in this like wonderful small town that we live in, we get that sense of security. Right? And it's like, well, this is a small town. There's not a lot of crime in this town. Our local police is so awesome, right? So everybody kind of gets lulled into that false sense of security. But we also get complacent because we're so used to our daily routine, right? And maybe for you, it's, every Tuesday you're down here at the senior center and you stop at the post office after. So it's almost like you run on autopilot, right? You ever drive somewhere and you're like, ooh, how did I get here? Like my brain was like not even present. And so it's little things like that we don't think about. And maybe we're walking in from our car to the senior center, and has that ever happened to you where all of a sudden you notice that somebody's behind you and you're like, whoa, I didn't even notice somebody was behind me? Because remember, our brains are really not designed to multitask. Even though we multitask all the time, our brain doesn't like that. It's hard for us to do more than one thing at once, even though multitasking was a big thing for a while, wasn't it? With like job applications, like the ability to multitask. And it's like, our brains actually don't like that, and it actually puts us at risk. So it's really being present with what we're doing. And so that sort of leads us into discussion about safety while you're out and about, whether it's walking from your car into a store or walking out in your neighborhood. We all experience that, right? We're all out and about occasionally. When you're out walking, I always think having somebody with you is obviously the best thing. But not all of us have the luxury to do that. I'm a runner, like I go out and run by myself, but I always make sure I have my cell phone on me for several reasons. One, I can call for help if I need it. And not just, God forbid, I'm being attacked, but if I fall and get hurt, I want to make sure I have my cell phone on me. Other things is that if for some reason I go missing on my run and my husband's like, Michelle never came back from her run, he can get the GPS off my phone two ways. So number one, if you have a significant other or a child or a good friend that you trust, there are ways that you can set up if you have a smartphone, you can set it up so that you can share your location with people. And if any of you have specific questions on any of this, let me know and we can talk about it either after the class or someday I can drop by your house and you can make me a cup of coffee and I will figure out your phone stuff for you. Does that sound good? Okay, perfect. So there's lots of capabilities and functionalities on these phones that a lot of people don't know about that help keep you safe. The other thing that we can do as law enforcement is if, say for some reason you end up driving somewhere and you decide to go somewhere else and all of a sudden someone at home is like, geez, you know what? He or she's been gone for an hour. They were only supposed to be gone for 10 minutes. Maybe you got caught up talking to someone at the store. You're not answering your cell phone. Your significant other or your friend or your roommate or your child is like, I haven't heard from so-and-so. I'm panicked that something's wrong. She has a heart condition. What if something happened? We can find the location off your cell phone with just the phone number. So, and we use it frequently where somebody, didn't come back for a walk or, a child ran away from home. And we can pinpoint, thank God for these smartphones now, we can pinpoint the exact location that somebody is. So it's really, really helpful. With that said, we can only do that in what we call an exigent circumstance. So it has to be some sort of emergency. So I'm not going to look up all your cell phones and figure out where you all are at all times. We have to have a purpose, obviously. So cell phones, I think, are great. A lot of people will ask me, do I think that that you should carry, weapons or pepper spray or things like that? I think that is a very personal decision for you. A lot of people will ask about pepper spray because it's a good tool. I like pepper spray. I think it's a great option for you to have. However, pepper spray, if you're out walking, should be accessible because women, I'm going to out us all here, we carry these nice purses, and where's the pepper spray usually? The bottom of the bag. And so if you're getting, God forbid somebody's coming into your space and you feel like you're going to get attacked, you're not going to be pulling up your, oh, wait a minute, checkbook, my lipstick, So you want to have that in your hand. And a lot of times people will go out and buy the keychain pepper sprays, so they go right on the keychain. So you can buy these at Bass Pro Shop, right in Foxborough.
Does it work on dogs?
Does it what?
Work on dogs.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah, so coyotes, yeah, animals, yeah, definitely. So they have little ones on the keychain and they're small. This is my handcuff key, but the pepper spray is about like that size on your keychain. So just another option to think about. And for people who are like, I don't know if I really want to go the pepper spray route, that seems kind of intense, or you just don't want to carry it, little can of hairspray also works pretty well. So, those bug spray.
Soap and water. Which you might need on your walk anyway.
Which you, use anyway.
Definitely. So any of those little things, I mean, think about when you get sunscreen, bug spray, hairspray in your eyes. It stings. So and you can get them 99 cents at Walgreens. So another thing to think about, but again, have it accessible. So while we're on the subject of keys, keys can also be used as a weapon. Yes? Yeah. I love using keys. I love using keys as weapons, as if I do this all the time, right? I love sharing that keys can be used as weapons. And we talked about parking garages. And here is what I do in parking garages. Now, people think because I'm a police officer that I carry my gun everywhere I go. I don't. For many reasons, but most of the time it's just not practical for me, or I just make the decision not to. But when I'm in parking garages, there's a lot of opportunity in parking garages for somebody to attack you, which is why I think they make us so nervous. There's lots of nooks and crannies. Parking garages are typically in more populated areas, such as cities or malls or other types of places where there's a lot of people, and they're not necessarily people that we know. And they're people that often are looking to victimize either a car by breaking into them or a person because there's not a lot of people around. And a lot of folks will say, well, parking garages have there's cameras everywhere. There's, security people in a lot of the parking garages. And that's true to a certain point. Most of those cameras in parking garages are not monitored. They're there, it's like any of us. We're going about our day. I mean, nobody's designated to look at those cameras unless you're in, maybe it's a government building or something like that. But by and large, there's not somebody sitting at the desk watching those cameras. So it's a little bit of a false sense of security. Your security guards in the parking garages as well, they're driving around, they're getting paid minimum wage. And it's not to say anything or minimize that position, but they're not out there looking for people's safety. They have a function, and it's to make sure that people are parked correctly and all that kind of stuff. Not that I don't think they would jump in to help if needed, but we need to just be realistic about the function of their job. So you're in a parking garage and you hear somebody walking up behind you, and you get that. Again, let's tune into that gut feeling. We've all felt it, right? So what would you do in that scenario? Would anybody run faster? What would anybody do? Huh?
Turn around and look at them.
Turn around and look at them. Yes. Okay, so that is, have you taken a class like this before? No. Okay. I'm like, you're going to teach with me someday, I think. No, that's the best thing to do, because here's the thing. Criminals don't want to be identified. Okay? And so when you make eye contact with somebody who's looking to victimize you or do you harm, in their head, they're like, she saw me, he saw me. So they don't want to be identified. So making eye contact is actually a good thing, and it's counterintuitive to how most of us feel. We don't want to turn around. We don't want to confront the person. And I'm not saying you have to confront the person and get into your fighting stance, although you can, because they might just be like, this person's crazy. I'm just gonna whatever. Never mind. But it's a good technique. Say hello to them. Look them in the eyes. And again, people don't always want to do that. The other thing you can do too, if somebody's really coming up into your space, you could do something like this, right? What does this mean?
Stop.
Back off.
Stop, back off. Maybe I need help. Okay, so think about if you're in a parking lot and you see somebody doing this, it's going to get your attention, right? You're going to be like, whoa, what's going on here? So again, it's that universal sign that, something's not okay. And you could say to that person, you're getting into my space, or you need to back off. And a reasonable person will back off, right? And if they don't, well, then what are we going to do? Creating distance is your friend. So creating as much distance as possible is good. So backing off, and then using what?
Hollering.
Your voice, hollering. Excellent. So your voice, if I teach you anything today, it's using your voice. And so what taking classes like this does, and everybody said, you know, well, I want knowledge, like I want to just know more. Using your voice is the biggest thing, and by sitting in this class and thinking about things that could happen, and this isn't to scare anybody, right? This isn't to create a culture of fear. This is just to share information that, you know what, your voice is a powerful weapon. And the more you think about using your voice, the more you put yourself in that parking garage or parking lot. Even if you go to Shaw's in Franklin every Wednesday of the week and you know that you've never seen anything bad there, put yourself in the position that, all right, I'm walking out of my car at Shaw's and I'm walking into the supermarket. What would I do if somebody walked up behind me? What would I do if somebody motioned for me to come over to their car? Hey, can I ask you a question? What are we doing there? We're closing the distance and we're getting closer to them. And I know we're in a society that we all want to be polite, right? And kind. And I think that's admirable. I pride myself on being a kind and compassionate person as well. But right, we also have to have that eye for safety always. Because what happens when you walk up to somebody's car and they decide to grab your arm? Uh-oh, right? So now we're in that zone. So we want to maintain distance. Sorry, I'm in a rush. Take out your cell phone, pretend you're on the phone, like whatever you need to do, because we don't want to get close to people. And so it's sort of thinking about those scenarios, not to put yourself into a panic, but just to think about the what if. Because what happens in our brain when we think about these different scenarios, it actually creates pathways in our brain. Just like when you drive to the supermarket and you get there and you're like, how did I get here? It's because you have driven that route for how many years that your brain has created a pathway. So the same is true. And that's why a lot of like football players, basketball players, they use visualization. So they'll actually visualize themselves, you know, throwing that football, catching the football, because it creates the same pathways in the brain as if you were actually doing it. Our brains are actually pretty amazing in that respect. So just thinking about those scenarios. Geez, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit safer when I'm in the parking lot. I'm going to take a look around when I get out of my car, right? Because you just never know. Is somebody around the corner that you didn't see? Did you have a question? Nope? Okay.
A couple of years ago, the sheriff's department was wanting people to put a sticker on their car that they were senior citizens. And I thought that was a horrible idea.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Right.
It was the idea that they could help you if you had a problem.
Yes.
But it
I see both sides of
identifies
that.
you.
Right.
It identifies you as a senior right there. I
Yeah.
don't think I want that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely see both sides. I see where they were going with that and trying to be helpful, but I also agree with you. I also see the danger in that too.
I would think it would be more dangerous to do that because
Yeah.
they know you're probably weaker than you would be if you
Yeah, and you might not be paying attention and, you know, wouldn't run fast enough. And
Yeah.
Put an NRA sticker on there. Put an NRA sticker on there.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna mess with you. Although the way politics are today.
I heard a couple things. Number one, that one of the recent things that the Boston Police Department is telling people to be aware of is the fact that people are faking an injury and are saying, you know, I'm in a van or whatever, and say, hey, come on, I need your help. This one, you know, she's having a heart attack or whatever, and they get somebody coming over to help, and then they're getting the chance to do something with that.
so the idea is to say, good, I'll call 911 for you.
Yeah, well, that's just something
And then you get the
I've heard
police there,
recently.
Yep.
And then the other thing that one of the fellows who used to be my neighbor used to be lieutenant in the police department that taught self-defense. And he taught, don't use the word, if you're in the city or whatever, don't call for help, because a lot of people won't look, but call fire. Is that still valid? Or
Yeah.
He said fire was worth 10 times more than.
Yeah, it can, and there is research that shows
That's
that.
what he said, statistically.
It does, yes. But I like to say that, I mean, if you still need help and that's what comes out, that's what comes out. So, but anything that you can verbalize, like with little kids now, you know, I'll teach little kids that, you know, if an adult is trying to take them, it's like, I don't know this person, like, this isn't my mom, this isn't my dad. Because a lot of times, think about you're in a store and you see a little kid having a fit, struggling with an adult. What do we all do? Like, oh, it's just a 4-year-old having a fit, right? Because that's what they do. I have children myself, and toddlers have fits, right?
I taught my son to yell kidnapper.
Yeah, excellent. I love that. It's so good. Exactly. So, things like that. So again, it's kind of thinking outside the box and also thinking about,
I just want to let them know that I went into the Prudential Center a few times, like at Christmas Eve, and then we went to church and then to dinner. And before I went, I called security to ask if they could come to the garage when we got there.
Love that.
Yeah, and they couldn't, be kind enough. They said, of course we can. So when you get near the garage, call us. They have the description, and we'll give it again, of the car. And when we left the restaurant, just before we left, I did the same thing. They met us at the restaurant and walked us down to the garage. I said to my friend, people think we're either celebrities or we're being jailed.
Either way, that's a good attention that day. I love that.
I've done that at night at the hospitals.
Yes.
I've been at a hospital at night.
Absolutely.
When the parking lot was empty.
It's so
Just
good.
ask for security, and they'll take you.
And honestly, that goes for like us as your local police too. And we, if there is an uncomfortable situation for you, and granted, we don't have, giant parking lots in this town, but if there is ever an opportunity that you feel like you need an escort, of course, call us. We actually had a woman working at the town hall one night, and she was there really late till about midnight. That's how hardworking these town employees are, right? And she called us and she said, all the lights are off in the back of the town hall. If you've ever been back there after,
oh my God,
it is dark out there. It is like an abyss. And she said, I'm just kind of nervous to walk to my car. And we had an incident that had happened in town. We had somebody that, this was years ago, but somebody was intoxicated and walking around town, and it got a lot of attention. So she was just kind of nervous, like, is this person still out there? And so she called us and asked if we could walk her to her car. And I was actually the one that got to go. I was working a overnight shift that time. And I was so happy. I was like, I'm so glad you called. And we really enjoyed, the opportunity to get to know all of you as well, and that you're making safe choices. It's a win for us. So we definitely use that. So it's thinking about those kind of tools that we have at our disposal. And it doesn't have to be, just physical assault. And that's what people often think of with self-defense, is like just physical assault. And we have to be realistic too about our limitations, right? And in an hour-long class, I could sit here and I could show you how to throw punches and kick and elbow and all those types of things. But if you're not doing that repeatedly, and you're not creating, again, those pathways in the brain and that muscle memory, you're not going to remember. And so keeping ourselves out of the situations really is the best defense, using our voice, knowing what we can use as a weapon if we have to. And so again, like with the keys, is my punch more effective like this or like this? Yeah. Or could I stab somebody in the eye with this, right? I mean, it's pretty gross, but again, we're thinking about fighting for our life here. So we're using whatever means necessary. Can you whack somebody with a cane? You're ready. You're already just whip that thing out, right?
There's something even better on your keychain.
What?
The alarm.
Yes. So you hit that alarm if you have the fob that has the car alarm on it. It's great. How many times do you all use that to find your car in the parking lot?
Well, I wish
I do. I forget where I park all the time.
I fell in my front yard at night on the ice and broke my ankle. And it wasn't until 2 days later I realized I could have hit the alarm button to get my husband's attention. I did get myself in the house, but I don't know how I did it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I fell.
Wow. So the same thing happened to my mother-in-law. She had fallen in the backyard, and she had, from the shoulder all the way down. She couldn't even sit up to move. And she didn't have a cell phone, key, nothing. And these are just, these are personal safety things as well. But again, that's just stuff to think about. So thinking about, as much as we don't want to be glued to our cell phones, as much as we don't want to carry keys around all the time, there's a lot of benefits to having them. So again, just some food for thought.
Also, for elderly people who are prone to falling, the nonprofit Friends of the Elderly, there's a program for mobile health units.
Yep. Yeah, excellent. Love that. So there's a lot at our disposal. Are we learning some things? Yes? Okay, good. So there's honestly so much we could talk about, right? We could sit here for hours and brainstorm, and I am always happy to come back and do more sessions too. So you let me know if you want more information, or if you want to have a cup of coffee, we can talk more. But I want to show you a few things as far as self-defense goes. So on the body, there are certain targets that we can hit on the human body. So a lot of people think that when you use self-defense, it's just sort of like hitting wherever you can. But there are certain targets that we call soft targets, and those are good to hit. So if God forbid, all of this great information that we all shared with one another today fails, and we need to use self-defense, where can you hit somebody that it actually matters? Yeah, nose, throat, you two, like, you can get up here and teach. They got it.
I know
yes,
that.
right? So if you think about,
And if it's
yes.
a man, I know where to kick him.
Yes, okay? But it's training your brain to think like that, because what happens if, like, God forbid, you're grabbed by somebody, you're gonna go into fight, flight, or freeze. Most people freeze, honestly. And again, it's creating that memory, putting yourself in those situations. What would I do if somebody grabs me? Well, I remember in this class, Michelle told us that, you know, the eyes are, of course, great places to poke, to hit, to put a key into. Nose, I know, sorry. So graphic. Nose is a great one. Has anyone ever been hit in the nose inadvertently?
Yes. Yes.
And how painful is it? And it doesn't, so here's the thing with the nose. It does not take a lot of force, right? I mean, when my daughter, she's 9 now, but when she was 2, she would like sit up and headbutt me, or when she was having a fit, right? Kids do that. And I remember, oh my gosh, like the pain, because what happens when you get hit in the nose? Your eyes start to water. Mm-hmm. So now they're kind of losing, the bad guy or girl is losing their vision, right?
And you bleed.
You bleed. So now you've got the distraction, not just of the watering eyes, the eyesight, the pain, the blood, but what else are they doing? Now they're bending over like this, okay? Which gives you an opportunity to what? Get away. Some people in class will be like, kick them. Did somebody say that? Yes, kick them, totally. So whatever floats your boat. You want to give them another kick and get away? And honestly, I joke about it, but I think it's a good technique to double up on techniques, particularly if you're a senior and you don't run as fast as, say, a 20-year-old person that is trying to assault you, right? So it may be worth, you know, that person keels over and maybe you take your foot and you kick the groin, or you put your knee up there, right? These are things that we can do, and they're effective.
Or the knee.
Or what?
The kneecap.
Kneecap, yes. So if we go from head to toe, right? So we've got eyes, nose, the throat, or you had mentioned the throat. Great spot to hit somebody. It basically has the same effect as the nose. You're kind of keeling over. You have that choking sensation. It's painful. And then moving down, the sternum and the solar plexus. Okay, so we've got the sternum, which is that breastbone that comes down. There's a ton of nerve endings at the bottom of the sternum. Anyone ever in medical professions here?
Xiphoid process.
Xiphoid process, right there. That's how we wake up really drunk people, right? Or check for responsiveness. It's true. We will rub our knuckle really hard at the end of the sternum, and people who are, you know, either incapacitated for some way, it's how we determine responsiveness. And if they wake up from it, which most of the time they do, because of all those nerve endings. So it's another good spot to hit. If you miss that and you hit their solar plexus, a lot of people think when you punch somebody in the stomach, you aim for like the lower stomach. No, exactly. You want to aim higher. And if everybody can feel in themselves, even if you push that, you can almost feel there's like a little hole there. It's right where that sternum comes to an end. It makes me nauseous just to push on that part of my stomach. The solar plexus is very uncomfortable, okay? So hitting somebody here is really good. We know that the groin is a great spot to hit, particularly for men, but works for women too. It's just worse for men, sorry guys. Knees, so your kneecaps, okay? So if you have to kick somebody in the kneecap, great. You can shatter the kneecap pretty easily. It doesn't take a lot of force. So none of these techniques take a lot of force, which is why I'm sharing them with you. Because again, we're not spending weeks together, like teaching you how to really punch somebody. We want to know where you can punch somebody with minimal force that it makes a difference.
What about stamping on their foot?
Yep, so that's the next one. So moving from the knees to the tops of the foot. Boom. Anyone's foot ever been stepped on before? Stub your toe? I just did it last night, and I was cursing and hoping my 9-year-old didn't hear because it hurt. So again, stomping on the foot, and people will say, well, what if they're wearing shoes? It still hurts. Okay, if they're wearing like steel toe work boots, okay, maybe not.
Then go for the shin.
Shins are great too. So there's a lot of, again, so thinking about these different parts of the body that, you know, when we go into that fight or flight, you might just kind of do one of these and hope you can wriggle your way away, instead of actually having those spots on the body that you're like, okay, I remember, here's a place I can hit, here's a place I can hit, or here, or here, or here. And so it's kind of remembering those things. When we punch, the best way to punch is with your thumb on the outside of the fist, okay? So everybody can make a fist, okay? So thumb is on the outside, and if anybody's really brave and wants to try, so you can actually see what it feels like. Does anyone want to punch anything today?
No.
Fine. I'll do it. Okay, so thumb out, and you're gonna hit straight on.
Thumb out, the thumb will sit under.
Not inside, not wrapped.
Cross, okay.
Yep.
The knuckle.
That was actually really good. Have you done this before? Do you work out? Okay. So that's how you're gonna
I used
punch.
to.
Yes. No, it's really good. And that's kind of how it works. And if people, I know we're out of time, but if people want to stay behind and want to play around a little bit and see what it feels like, a lot of us have never punched anything in our life, this will be your opportunity. But I hope all of the information I provided is helping you prevent any of these scenarios from happening.
I had heard too one time that if somebody comes up behind you and puts the hand over your mouth, if your hands are free, to pull their fingers.
Yeah, especially, and not just pulling them away from you, but pulling them, yes, you got it. Yep, so you take the fingers and you pull each side apart. Okay, so yeah, and it's very effective. It's a good tool.
What about biting?
Yep, so biting is good. Yep, and some self-defense instructors will say like not to bite because then you get, you know, exposed to the person's blood. But if that's all you have, you're gonna bite. It's okay. So I'm okay with that. And same thing, if somebody grabs you from behind, remember all those tools still apply. Say your arms are down. Can I still kick their foot or their shin? Can I elbow them? Absolutely. Maybe my hands are free and I can reach back and punch at the groin, right? There's a lot that we can do, even if we are grabbed from behind or our arms are tied. Same thing if we're grabbed like from the front or if our arm is grabbed. You know, we can hit a good one with a forearm grab is hitting on their forearm. Okay, it's a very sensitive spot.
Or their elbow.
Or their elbow. Yeah, elbow's really good too. So great places. Yeah, it's not a comfortable feeling at all. So there's so much, honestly, there's so much information that we could talk about, but I want to make sure that everybody leaves here feeling like they learned something. I'll stay behind for a few if anyone has extra questions. And then if you had stuff that you didn't want to ask in front of the group or you want to dig into anything a little bit more, that offer to have coffee, tea, water stands. And I'm always happy to talk with folks. So thank you.
All right.